Welcome to this explainer. You've probably seen it in movies, or maybe you've been lucky enough or unlucky enough to see it in your own backyard. A massive, buzzing, swirling cloud of bees just leaving a hive. Now, what's your first thought when you see that? Most of us just think, well, it's pure, uncontrolled chaos, right? But what if I told you that a honeybee swarm isn't chaos at all? It's actually a highly engineered, totally synchronized, life-or-death tactical mission. Seriously, it's one of the most incredible feats of biological coordination on the entire planet.
And that brings us to the big, overarching question for today. How exactly does a brainless superorganism make high-stakes, life-or-death decisions in real time? Just think about that for a second. We're talking about tens of thousands of individual bees. None of them have the brain power to step back and comprehend the big picture. Yet together, they pull off this flawless, synchronized relocation. It's like a massive biological puzzle. And today, we're going to break down exactly how they solve it, step by step.
Okay, let's dive into this with Phase 1, Triggers of the Exodus. So how does this whole thing even start? Well, a booming springtime hive leads to some serious overcrowding. And that causes this frantic, palpable agitation where bees are literally just physically bumping into each other nonstop. But you see that frantic bumping? That's just the physical side. The actual trigger that sets off the alarm bells is entirely chemical. It involves something called Queen Mandibular Pheromone, or QMP. You can think of QMP as this invisible chemical glue that keeps all the worker bees totally loyal, effectively preventing a revolt. But when a hive gets insanely overcrowded, that queen scent gets spread way too thin. Once those workers stop smelling enough of that pheromone, their biological programming just overrides everything. They assume, hey, either the queen is failing or we've just gotten way too big for her. And their immediate response is to stop their normal chores and start constructing what are called queen cups. These are literal cradles designed to raise a brand new generation of royalty. Once those cups are built, the biological mission to leave has officially initiated.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the hidden physiological transformation that happens right under our noses. It's not just that they act differently, their bodies literally change. Look at a normal worker bee. She's got high levels of juvenile hormone, which means she's steadily aging and moving through her normal hive duties. But a worker bee who's preparing to swarm, her juvenile hormone levels just absolutely plummet. This biological hack basically freezes her biological age. It makes her physiologically younger, giving her this massive boost of nursing energy and the crucial wax-secreting power she's going to need to build an entirely new city from scratch. I mean, they are literally turning back their own biological clocks to get ready for this journey.
So, with the workers biologically prepped and those new queen cradles built, we shift gears to Phase 2, the Scout Oligarchy. Now, finding a new home is absolutely not a democracy where everybody gets a vote. It's left to a tiny, elite fraction of the colony. It's crazy when you look at the scale of this operation. A massive 95% of the colony just stays back and waits. Meanwhile, a tiny 5% fraction of these super experienced foragers transform into real estate agents. Even before the swarm actually leaves the old hive, these elite scouts are out house hunting. They're meticulously measuring the volume of hollow cavities to make sure they're big enough, they're checking for wind protection, and when they find a prime piece of real estate, they head back to the hive and perform the famous waggle dance. But get this, they aren't dancing for food this time, they're literally dancing to advertise a new home.
So, how on earth do they agree on which site to pick? They use a brilliant mechanism called Quorum Sensing. A scout bee doesn't have the time, or the ability really, to convince thousands of her sisters. Instead, she just keeps returning to her favorite site. Once she gets there and sees a threshold of about 10 to 15 other scout bees checking out that exact same spot, boom, she knows a quorum has been reached. That 10 to 15 number is the magic threshold. Once she sees it, she knows the decision is made, and she heads back to tell the swarm.
Which really begs the question, right? Why not wait for a unanimous vote? Why not ensure every single scout agrees it's the absolute perfect location? Well, it all comes down to a really brutal, high-stakes balance of speed versus accuracy. If they wait around trying to get perfect consensus while the whole swarm is exposed out in the open, battling freezing rain or hungry predators, the entire colony might literally starve to death. So Quorum Sensing ensures they pick a good enough home fast enough to actually survive the trip.
All right, so the destination is locked in, the hive is totally prepped. Now we enter Phase 3, the countdown signals.
This is it, the literal launch sequence of the Exodus. Timing is everything here. Communication is absolutely critical. It's a frantic two-stage process. Step 1 is the piping signal. Scouts press their bodies against the resting bees. They rapidly vibrate their flight muscles. It creates a high-pitched sound. It's a primer to get everyone warmed up. Then the energy peaks. Step 2 hits, the buzz run. Scouts start running wildly through the crowd. They physically butt into other bees. They buzz their wings in violent bursts. They are essentially yelling, "Time to go." It sets off a massive chain reaction, relaying the launch command until the entire mass explodes into the sky.
And this brilliantly illustrates why that first piping signal is so absolutely critical. The bees have a target internal temperature they must reach, exactly 35 degrees Celsius, or 95 degrees Fahrenheit. When the scouts tell the colony to start shivering, it's not a suggestion. It's a physical life or death requirement. Through collective shivering, they have to heat up their flight muscles. If they don't hit exactly 35 degrees, they physically cannot fly. The launch aborts. The entire mission fails. It is just a spectacular feat of biological thermodynamics.
Once they hit that temperature and take to the sky, we move right into phase 4, surviving the elements.
Okay, so the swarm has left the hive and temporarily settled into what's called a bivouac. You've probably seen this. It looks like a massive dripping beard of bees just hanging off a tree branch while the scouts finalize the move. Now this is their absolute most vulnerable moment. We're zooming out from the micro level of a single bee to the macro thermodynamics of the entire superorganism. The outside environment could be a freezing 5 degrees Celsius or 41 degrees Fahrenheit. A single bee out there would freeze to death in minutes. But inside the core of that living bivouac, it is a perfectly regulated, balmy 35 degrees Celsius.
So the crucial point is how they pull this off without freezing to death or overheating. They use these master-level thermoregulation tactics. The outer bees pack together tightly to form a thick, living, insulating mantle. Inside, they huddle up to trap that core heat. But if it gets too hot in there, the bees will actually physically shift their bodies to create ventilating channels, literal empty tunnels to let the trapped heat escape. And the wildest part? It is completely self-organized. There is no central controller, no queen barking orders. Every single bee is just reacting to her own local temperature and the sister right next to her, adjusting on the fly to ensure the colony survives.
Let's move to and see how this builds into our final concept, Phase 5, the superorganism mind. When you step back, every single mechanism we've looked at today is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. From that initial dilution of pheromones, to the elite 5% scouting party, all the way to democratic quorums and shivering thermodynamics on a freezing branch. Every step is perfectly engineered by natural selection. It is all for the survival of the swarm as a singular entity. So next time you see a swarm of bees, you'll know you aren't looking at chaos. You are looking at a highly organized, oligarchic society making real-time life or death survival choices with flawless precision. It really shifts your perspective, doesn't it? Which leads me with a question for you to ponder today. What part of the honeybee's collective intelligence surprised you the most? Think about that and keep exploring the hidden engineering of our natural world.